Hi, welcome to the Sankofa Pan-African series. Our guest today is Dr. Joseph Roberts. But before Dr. Joseph Roberts comes on, please click on the subscription button if you've not done so yet. And don't forget to also click on your bell, your notification bell. Thank you. Hi, Joseph. Welcome to Sankofa Pan-African series. The Berlin conference did not just divide Africa, into groups that belong to various European countries. When during all the period of colonization, all efforts, all resources were put into individual African countries to link them as channels for raw materials direct to the home colonial countries that were in charge of them. So telephones were easy. It was easier to make calls from French and Francophone Africa to France than to make calls from Francophone Africa to Anglophone Africa. As close as Benin and Nigeria, are during colonial time, and until recently, it was easier to call Europe than to call one another. It's the same thing with trade routes and all of that. So it was deliberately done to keep us in pieces. So until we have this coherence in trading, and of course, we know that slavery, colonization did not only result in economic incapacity, but also in distrusts.
We're at a critical point with the African free trade, African continental free trade area, because if we don't organize very quickly, that will then become a tool and that makes it easier for the continent to be exploited. People are not considering that fact, but when the market is unified, foreign governments can come in and it takes one treaty to give them what they want rather than 54 different treaties. And at the moment, the structure of the AU is, again, something that probably needs to be looked at very, very carefully. The African Union should not be funded by non-African entities. That's crazy. So, because again, if they do, these things come with strings attached.
Yeah.
And if the African Union is being funded by external entities, what are we giving up? And then that becomes a question of sovereignty as well. So those are critical issues. I think I'll leave those matters to, let's just say we want to focus on what we can affect right now. But going forward, we'll be looking at advocacy and strengthening, forming strategic partnerships so that we can begin to speak truth to power. I think that's really important.
So my question then is, yes, Vital Africa is one organization. We need more organizations like that. So people out there watching who might find this idea, okay, maybe I never really gave it a serious thought, or okay, it's an idea that yet I've been thinking about, and it's nice to have Joseph Roberts articulate it. And this is something I'd like to get involved with. How do they start?
We're on LinkedIn. We have a presence on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. The website is vital.africa. I'm still in beta mode, so that's not ready yet.
Put that up.
Yeah. And essentially we vet our members, and the commitment is our fundamental philosophy is Ubuntu, which is I am because you are. The idea that yes, as an individual, I can go a certain distance, but no matter how far I go, others' perception of me will inevitably be tied to the way they see or perceive the group I belong to. That's why you have situations, even during this COVID, a doctor in the United States can be denied appropriate care. Dr. Susan Moore, who sadly passed away, appropriate care. So she's made it at the top of her profession, and yet because of the perception, the color of her skin, she doesn't get the respect she deserves. That's right. Just a basic humanity.
Yeah.
And our thing is this: we're saying the reason the group was formed, it was because of instances like this. Of course, George Floyd happened, but we were formed before that. But the realization was this: that respect is linked to your roots. If you come from a family that's perceived to be an honorable family, there's a certain level of respect attached to that. And in the real world, you find that respect is also tied to economic prowess.
And your color of the skin, and your color of your skin.
Yeah. So in Nkrumah, Ghana's first president said Africa is not poor, it's Africans who are poor. So we have the disconnect is, how can the inhabitants of the richest continent on the planet be the poorest on the planet? It doesn't make sense.
And that's a question we need to keep asking ourselves. Not just Africans, but any person, any fair-minded person from any part of the world should wonder, why, the continent with the richest resources should actually have the poorest people on earth. You cannot say you're a liberal, or or you're someone who has any sense of ethics or right or wrongness, and not question that. We have to question it. Aid is not our solution.
No.
We don't know. Ideally, we should not be needing aid. We have enough resources, and aid, they're just a kind of palliative to just keep us down there. Just keep you quiet, keep you suffering and smiling. We need to change that.
It's funny you mention aid, because if I think, again, one of the benefits of social media, you'd have seen the video of Ghanaian professor, Professor Ama Atu.
Oh yes, I've interviewed her. I interviewed her a few years ago. Awesome woman, brilliant.
She's a brilliant mind. But her quote, and I paraphrase, she said, "We're in danger of making aid a kind of foreign policy."
Trust her.
It's I heard that, and I laughed, because it's true. And she said this. She said, "No one is ever going to give you the best that they have. They'll give you the leftover."
Yes.
And Africa is going to get the leftover of the COVID vaccine at 2-3 times the price. And that's what's happening. Europe is selling the vaccine to African countries at 2.5 times the price, because apparently African countries didn't contribute towards the development of the vaccine. So we're paying 2.5 times the price. 6 months down the line, when it gets to Africa, the virus would have mutated. The vaccine would be ineffective.
Yeah, so what they don't know is that they're just right now, they're cutting their face, their nose, but it's going to spite their face.
Of course.
They can keep hoarding the vaccines as much as they can, but unless they see it as a real global problem that they must provide the global solutions to. In an ideal world, the vaccines should not be sold to poor countries at all. They should be given to them. Otherwise, all the money you're investing on it and trying to buy 4 5 times what you need, you're wasting it, because it's not going to go away, and it's going to keep mutating and affecting you. You're going to keep putting more money into developing new ones. It's crazy. It's
I
not
think
it's not nuclear science.
no, I, I
This
think
approach is wrong.
you're right, and I think COVID has really been um, a game changer on so many levels
But
because
not sufficiently so.
yeah, we can only hope. But I think at least those leaders who are aware and conscious will realize that this will not be the last pandemic the world faces. And if they don't learn the lessons from this pandemic, of course, um, the next one will be even worse. But I'm optimistic because initially, when COVID started, the question here in the West was why is the case fatality rate so low in Africa? And some of the explanations were because of Ebola, so the infrastructure was in place to deal with mass outbreaks. So at least there was a level of preparedness there. So I'm hoping that this pandemic at least lays the ground for a degree of self-sufficiency, which is what the Pan-African ethos is. Um, you know, to be self-sufficient and not, you know, always have a begging bowl going and asking for aid,
Thank you.
um, because that's not the route out of our current malaise.
Yeah.
Africa needs to become self-sufficient, and there's no reason why it can't. That's There's no reason why, if Africa is left alone, there's no reason why Africa can't become self-sufficient. But I think Africans need to organize. Africans need to be strategic, and we need to believe that it can be done in the space of a generation. This can be done. Um, the capacity is there, definitely. There is a huge capacity deficit, but the capacity is there. And one final thing I wanted to mention, I've not mentioned that because there's a capacity deficit, and this is touching on the importance of knowledge sharing. If there's a capacity deficit and you want to meet a specific need, then you need a certain group of people to take on additional capacity to meet that need. So what we're saying here at Vital Africa is this, that in an age where continuous learning, online learning, continuous professional development, lifelong learning is the trend, then we need to be strategic, look at Africa's problems and see those as opportunities to increase our investment capacity, whether that's taking on an additional skill set, um, supporting innovation on the grassroots level to meet that need, because there is a deficit. And if we can wait and bring the little ones through, but that's going to take some time. I think there's capacity for people to, as we say in the UK, level up. So take on extra capacity lateral to the areas of usual endeavor. So if I'm a doctor and I see that there's an issue, I can take a course in entrepreneurship and try and solve that issue. I have and we have people who have the brain power who can do that. And if we band together in a supportive environment, then we can learn from each other, so that we're not making mistakes. And so I think we need to coalesce. A lot of our problems are we need to learn to work together. And I think once you have an environment where everyone knows what everyone else is doing, you reduce the you reduce duplication. And once you do that, you start to increase efficiency. So if I'm doing one thing and I see that someone else is doing it better, then I either join them or support them to then, to grow. We, of course, there are some companies, especially in the field of agribusiness, we need lots and lots of farmers. You don't leave all the farming to one person. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that if two people are doing exactly the same thing, then it just makes sense to join together so that your impact is amplified. I think I think that makes sense. And I think that's something we need to, but obviously that has to be strategic. So that's one of the areas that we're looking at.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
So what can we be expecting from anything? What can we be expecting from you in the near future with the Vital Africa project or any of your other projects?
So, I mean, recently, what we've been doing, we're continuing with both arms of what we're doing. So, knowledge sharing, especially in terms of entrepreneurship. So, building resilience into our business endeavors. So, that's really critical for what we're trying to do, because we need to be empowered and financially somewhat independent to be able to then transfer some of that wealth, invest that into the innovative businesses and African innovators on the continent. I keep saying the poor can't help the poor. so African professionals need to increase their financial power. Already we do spend a lot. The value of remittances is astonishing. Our spending power is huge. So it's just about harnessing that to really make our money work better for us. So knowledge sharing is key, but we're also focused on really investing in African-owned businesses. So we're actively seeking game-changing generational talent. And we want to fund those because problem solvers are what Africa needs right now. People who think outside the box. And our firm belief is that the continent is full of problem solvers. We say that necessity is the mother of invention, and we see so many inventors on the continent, but they don't have an enabling environment. So we're building our capacity to invest, and I think that's really key. But psychologically, what that also does is it breaks the dependency mindset. So we're talking earlier about aid. If we invest in our young people, they are loyal to us. They're loyal to Africa. And when they become leaders, if we train our leaders, like people like Fred Swaniker is doing, if we train our leaders, instill the values we want in them, when they become leaders, they will be loyal. So another thing, and this is where your expertise really helps us, is developing what some people are calling the African essence. We're very diverse in our culture, but if we can distill out certain core values that we can agree on as fundamental, so Ubuntu, but also Sankofa, which is, as your channel, going back into history and saying, how did we get here? What were the mistakes that were made? How can we avoid those? All those strands, we're trying to pull them all together and see if we can really bring this into a sort of beautiful African tapestry. Make it into a work of art.
Thank you very much, Joseph Roberts. And thank you for being a part of this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you've not yet done so. Please share our videos with your friends, and give us a thumbs up if you like our videos. The only way you can support us and keep us going is to please subscribe and share our videos, and don't forget to click on the bell so that you can get notified whenever we have new videos up. See you next time.